Welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Mendte. On this week's show, the House is still in recess without passing the COVID-19 stimulus bill. We'll hear from New Jersey Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill, who says it's time to get back to work. Meet the New Jersey Assemblyman who has been traveling over 100 miles a day, several days a week just to work out. He's got to be happy New Jersey gyms are reopening. We'll ask him. Kids overwhelmingly hate remote learning. That's the results of a new poll. We'll talk to the CEO of True Public about his surprising results. Maybe those kids should consider learning pods. It's a new learning alternative becoming popular in New Jersey. We'll tell you all about it. But first, my interview with Mikie Sherrill, Democratic Congresswoman from New Jersey's 10th Congressional District. You recently went back to vote on the United States Postal Service bill. I was surprised that there was bipartisan support in New Jersey. Were you?
Well, I'm not really, because I think if the other members of Congress here in New Jersey had been getting the feedback that I have been getting, and I assume they have, this is something that people in New Jersey care deeply about. So the Postal Service has 90% approval rating, the highest federal agency in the country. I received over 2,000 calls the weekend I was getting pictures in of the blue mailboxes being taken off the streets in Morristown. We've had concerns with high-speed sorting machines being removed. And this is something that is a real concern, especially during coronavirus, as businesses aren't getting invoices in time, as they're sending for supplies through the mail, and as people are getting their prescription drugs through the mail. We know that over 80% of our veterans who use the VA system get their prescription drugs through the mail, and those are slowing down. So I actually have been surprised in areas where it's not a bipartisan issue.
I watched the hearings, and it seemed like the Postmaster General was saying, yes, there have been some slowdowns, but that's because of sick outs and because of some areas that are hotspots where they are not delivering to. It had nothing to do with any order that he gave. He claims that overtime is exactly the same as it was before he got in, and the mailboxes and the sorters were going to happen anyway. That was in the works before he got there. Do you buy any of that?
No, I don't, because that's not what we're hearing on the ground. Even from our district postal director, it took us a while to get an answer. We sent some requests for answers about what was going on in the district. It wasn't clear to me that there was a plan or what the plan had been for the blue mailboxes. After our advocacy, we've been assured that they will all be returned one for one, but we still don't have a timetable for that. And then we've heard that high-speed sorting machines have been removed, but we've not gotten a response on that, why they've been removed, what the plan is, and how that would ever create more efficiency, because we certainly haven't seen a greater efficiency. We're also hearing from people that the delivery trucks aren't being filled properly before they leave the postal center, that people aren't able to, as they have in the past, deliver mail to the processing center where it gets distributed from, but they have to do it to the local center, which again slows down mail. So if the Postmaster General is not giving out these directives, it's really incumbent upon him to determine who is and why.
Majority Leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, has already said he's not taking up this bill until COVID-19 stimulus bill is dealt with. He said, I can't in good faith deal with the Postal Service when people are suffering across the country. Does he have a point?
Well, then he should take up that bill. I mean, we passed the HEROES Act in May. His bill still doesn't have any state and local funding in it. It doesn't have enough money to support some of the unemployment insurance needs that we have. We need a further round of PPP loans. And so we need to make sure we're putting the correct amount of money into that. And his initial bill did have $8 billion more in weapons funding, and which I have to say, here I am a veteran. I care very deeply about our armed forces. I just passed an authorization for $740 billion more for our Defense Department. And now in a coronavirus package where we're hearing from the Senate, they don't have enough money to do what we need to do for the country, they're passing weapons funding. So I think Mitch McConnell needs to come to the table with a serious effort to take care of the American people, and we need to get that passed.
He claims he's at the table and that the Democrats aren't coming to the table. And I understand that most things are done like this on Zoom these days and by phone, but isn't it a bad look that everybody's going home in the House?
Well, we are on 24-hour recall. So we haven't fully gone out of session. I was actually hoping that we would be recalled sooner for the CARES Act legislation. We did get recalled for the postal legislation. But yeah, I would like to see everyone in the House and the Senate back in Washington passing legislation on this. I think it's critical.
The RNC has been going on this week. I will say that we are doing this interview on the day that President Trump is going to give his speech. So you haven't been able to see all of it. Have you been watching?
I have watched parts of it.
What do you think?
Well, to me, it didn't really give the hopeful vision for the future that I saw from the Democratic convention. I think Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are uniters in bringing the country together. It was surprising to see all the Republicans at the Democratic convention, including Christine Todd Whitman, our former governor and the former head of the EPA under Bush, among others. And I think the unifying message of bringing the country forward, it really spoke to me, and I think many other people across the country. The Republican convention seems to be far more divisive, and I was shocked really not to hear more about coronavirus. This is kind of the heart of what we're all facing. We have businesses that are closing. We're trying to get kids back to school. I'm going to be homeschooling my 4 kids. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but all because we're not appropriately handling the public health crisis across the country with a good federal response. If you see the heat maps of the country, you see that the Northeast is the area where we are driving cases down, where we are working incredibly hard to handle the coronavirus pandemic. But the rest of the country, the response has been incredibly uneven, and that's why we need this president to take a leadership role and to do more to address this crisis.
You have more conversations with your colleagues and certainly with leadership than we are privy to. Do you believe you'll be back to vote on a COVID-19 stimulus bill before the election?
I certainly hope so. I know that the speaker is meeting with Mark Meadows today. I know she's continued to push hard for the reconciliation of our 2 bills. And I'm really hopeful because this is something desperately needed across this country, but particularly here in New Jersey with the state and local funding.
Yeah, it was so refreshing to hear you say that veterans' health and veterans' rights is not a partisan issue. I wish we could talk that way about a lot of things, especially COVID-19. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. New Jersey Democratic Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill. Still to come, you're going to find out how kids feel about online learning, and it's not good. That's next.